I'm very relieved to see you all here. I think actually every single person left in the Palais is now in this room. So that is a relief, basically. Walking around this morning, I was like, well, this is going to be an interesting chat between four friends. Anyway, thank you all for coming. My name's Jesse Cleverley. I'm your moderator for this flight into the future. I run a transmedia development company in London, and I would describe myself as a transmedia showrunner. Today we have three extremely more interesting people than me on our panel to help us navigate this conversation. And I think what we thought we would do is have a discussion which kind of followed a certain kind of narrative logic about how content is created, conceived of, created, distributed and consumed and hopefully monetized. So we're going to be talking about what lies, I think, sort of beyond transmedia, which could be sort of said to be traditional content forms bolted together across traditional platforms. What will content look like when it's actually been designed to be consumed on the devices of the future? And as Anthony said, the one thing you know is that absolutely everything we say today will be proven wrong. So if you want to know what's not going to happen in the next 10 years, keep listening. First of all, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and I will begin at the end with Anthony.
Good morning. Welcome. Apologies to those of you whose flights are delayed, and that's why you're here. I'm sure it must be at least some of you. I'm Anthony Lilley. I'm Chief Exec and Chief Creative Officer of Magic Lantern in the UK. We have been around nearly 15 years in the what we now call the transmedia space, so creating content and properties for interactive media platforms across the board. Some of our work is associated to existing IP properties, so we've done a lot of television-related work on everything from dramas like Doctor Who and Spooks through to children's programs. And some of our work is IP created by our team, properties created by our team or our associates. Or in joint ventures, which are designed to run across multiple platforms. And I never ever do sessions about the future on principle. So I don't know what I'm doing here, because it's incredibly difficult to make predictions, especially about the future, as a very famous man once said. My angle in the conversation, I suppose, this morning will be that focusing on the technologies really won't lead to good thinking and good commercial products in this area. It's looking very carefully instead at the behaviours of the people we formerly knew as the audience, and what people are actually doing with their copyright experiences, their experiences of copyright material, how they're making their own stuff, of course, but also how they're the huge intellectual properties that are increasingly global in scale are transmuting and moving across platforms. I think one thing that is definitely a sort of common plank in my view of the future is that great television is here to stay, but that it will, if anything, get larger in scale and smaller in scale, and the kind of middle ground will be very difficult territory to live in, because I believe that the next 10 years in television terms will be the best decade television's ever had. Because it will involve the creation of some new wonderful television concepts, formats and shows, and the availability of absolutely everything that's worth watching that's ever been made in the past. And that to me is an obvious position we now find ourselves in. So I think we can bank that and move on to how we invent, as Jesse said, properties which are designed for this transmedia space. And for that I spend a lot of my time. I've just spent about a third of a year working on story concepts within Sony PlayStation. Game and augmented reality concepts for Sony PlayStation. And I find that the most exciting place to be for me at the moment.
Thank you. Alex.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alex Medeiros. My job at TV Globo is mostly to find and develop new formats for free TV. And by new formats, we call everything that's not traditional drama, so everything from reality shows to sketch comedy and other formats. And one of those other formats is the whole universe that we have been calling transmedia. And over the past 18 months, I've been working together with a new transmedia team and we've been developing content, extensive narrative content, based on our core drama shows. And rather than talk too much about it, I brought a clip, which is an episode of a web series we're running right now. And just some background on it. The show is called O Astro. It's a telenovela running at 11 p.m. It's a remake of one of our classic telenovelas back from 1977. And this web series is, I guess you could call it half repurposing and half original content. There's some stuff that was originally shot for it. And it was basically put together by this Transmedia team, but overseen by the creator of the original show, which is, I guess, one of the key things I believe in and we believe in. You have to integrate traditional TV creators into this whole landscape. So for this web series, we use some footage from the original show. And there's an interesting aspect of it that the star of the original show is also in the new show, and he basically plays the mentor of the main character. And he's both in the Transmedia content and in the footage that we used from the original 1977 telenovela. So could we run it, please?
Eu sempre peço, né? Sempre venho aqui pedir alguma coisa, mas hoje eu vim agradecer.
Como pode ter dado errado tão rápido?
Desculpa, Amanda, eu não vou poder ficar pro café.
Como assim? Você não pode me abandonar depois de tudo que aconteceu.
Tudo bem que a gente não deve ser cachorrinho delas, mas também não é pra ficar fazendo joguinho o tempo todo.
O que há, Amanda?
Diga que me ama.
Olha, eu estou muito ocupado agora. Depois nós conversaremos.
Anos de desrespeito. Uma vida inteira de descaso com o parceiro. É claro que isso não ia acabar bem, não é? Herculano, a sua sorte é que eu estou sempre por aqui, iluminando o seu caminho. E o mais engraçado, meu amigo, é que nem sempre você percebe a minha presença. Mas eu estou aqui, sempre.
Na linha, rapaz. Vaza.
Nego, dá um prato de comida pro garoto, põe na minha conta.
Você não comeu hoje?
Nem me lembro.
Como é teu nome? Eu te ajudei te livrando de alguma coisa no momento em que você precisava. Eu tenho o direito de saber, né?
Márcio Rayala. Muito prazer.
Isso. Valorize esse momento. Sobe a música. E agora sim, todos os caminhos se cruzaram.
Oh, phew. God, I don't know quite how to follow that. Anyway, Laurent.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Laurent Weill. I am the founder and chairman of Visiware. We do casual games in a broad sense. So we started originally in the interactive television business, where we became the world-leading company deployed in 70 countries with interactive game channels. You know, the ones that you may play from your set-top boxes, your connected TV, with the remote on your hands, in a sofa, enjoying with the family. So that is our historical business, if I may say. And we launched 2 years ago a very big multiplayer casual game platform that you may play not only on the web, but also that we ported on the cloud, on Amazon, and which allows you to participate to shows from home in a full synchronized way. So maybe I show you a video which will be more clearer. But to give you a very quick overview of this, in 7 months only where we launched this, we already run 260 shows. We already had 9 million games played, and it's deployed already with the first format, which is Money Drop, with Endemol in 7 countries. So right now, there are every day we have 2 to 3 shows that we run at the same time. And I'm very happy to discuss here of the future, because I see this future as a very in a very optimistic way. I think that the way the new technology and the way our market is growing is a lot of very exciting new opportunities for all of us. So I am not, like many I've heard, which see the digital new ways as a threat. I see this as a lot of opportunities, and I would like to share this with you, why and how to monetize this. So maybe the best is if I can show you the video briefly so you'll understand more what I would like to talk to you about.
Armed guards picked up $1 million in cash from a secret vault. It was transported under maximum security to our protected set, where the entire million will be handed over to one couple. Their challenge? Hang on to it through the most heart-pounding game ever imagined.
I'm Kevin Pollak, and this is the $1 Million Money Drop.
Yeah. So you may know this very successful show from Endemol, the Money Drop. Okay, so while you're watching the TV, you may be home with an iPhone, a tablet, a PC, a Mac, actually whatever you want. The interactive show is fully synchronized with the TV show. So for example, on Money Drop, the answers are shown first, which is exactly what happens as well on your PC. So for the first time, you may participate to the game show from home, as if you are on stage. And I really can tell you that this is definitely changing TV, and I would like to discuss this more in length in the future, not only for game shows, but for many other TV content. So right now, the contestants on the TV are putting their money on the trapdoors. I'm doing the same from home. I will be able to challenge my friends. I will be able to compete and talk and chat with my friends. So at the right same time, the trapdoors are opening, and then I see live on the TV and on my PC the stats, the number of players, the leaderboards, if women are answering faster than men, if Marseille is better than Paris. So this is really a technology that will help to build up all together not only game shows, but sports, voting, polling, new events. What is very new, it's massive. We can run 1 million people together at the same time. And more than all, I'm sure you will be happy to talk about monetization, because it's a completely new monetization tool.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to begin where all things begin, with development. And I'm going to start with you, Alex, on this, I think. Okay. You sit inside. I mean, I think Alex is being a bit modest about what he's got going on at TV Globo. I was there last year, and the Transmedia development unit is a truly daunting thing to talk to if you're posing as a transmedia expert. Never have I had imposter syndrome worse than I did when faced with Alex's team. So there you sit, Alex, with your team, your Transmedia development team, and when you look at the next 5-10 years, what are the platforms that you think your team are going to be developing for? Because obviously people say they work in TV. It's like, well, you don't make televisions, you work in content. But the platform's become so dominant, hasn't it, that in a way we forget that that we're not working in television, we're working in content. So talk about where you're directing your team's attentions.
Right. Well, I think it's, on one hand, it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of fragmentation going on, and a lot of this market and the past 4 or 5 markets, I think. We've been talking a lot about new platforms, new media overall, new ways to deliver content. And that's all true, and we know it's happening. But also, I think if you look at some of the biggest shows going on in the world right now are based on event programming, say something like American Idol, live television, or the World Cup, and in our case, a telenovela. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think what we have to think about is a way to integrate that kind of content, not necessarily TV shows, into all the platforms that are going to keep popping up, and there's going to be more. And I think the key thing is to, I think, always go back to what motivates people to enjoy their experience in the first place, and sharing that experience with the peers, which may be communities, which may be the friends and family. And I think a lot of new platforms are going to be strongly rooted in the sense of community and sharing and curation, if you will. So on that end, I think it might sound a little bit like an easy answer, but I think there's always going to be like very, very, very big content. There's all of this going on, but there's also 3D and Avatar and Star Wars in 3D and The Lion King in 3D. And I don't think that kind of huge content's going to go away. But there was a really interesting statistic by Ted Sarandos from Netflix a couple of days ago. He said that every night a new episode of Breaking Bad runs. Like the most downloaded episode is the first episode of Breaking Bad from 4 years ago. And I think what we're going to see is, on one hand, new platforms with new content, things that we don't even imagine, and maybe like flexible screens and holograms. I don't think it's crazy to think that we're going to have Star Wars and holograms, or you're going to have flexible tablets, and maybe you'll have tablets that you can fold it into your pocket and plaster onto the wall or something like that. I think all of that's going to go on. But a lot of the content that people are going to be consuming is going to be like a variation of classic content, if you will. And I think the new platforms are going to bring up new kinds of content, but also new kinds of relationship to spread their content around. I don't know if I went too far with that.
So that posits a vision where you've got huge brands driven by television and much activity going on around the edges. But if one of the problems that TV challenges, shall we say, that TV faces right now is a departure of advertising money into potentially arguably more efficient or more targeted, more measurable arena like digital. The interweb, etc. Then that means that the money for production, quite simply, is moving to other places. So when you're thinking about ideas and where things are going, do you see that same vision of still TV as the big driver of audiences and satellites, or are you now at Magic Lantern really starting to think about developing for other platforms first and seeing that as a kind of really viable place to be looking?
I think there's a question under your question, Jesse, which is TV as a platform is hugely powerful. Are broadcasters in such a powerful position that they used to be in? So I look quite a lot at what we see in sports rights, for instance, and I look at what you see with sort of existing huge global brands, for instance, in children's, where you see these enormous... The reality is already multi-platform. Reality's been multi-platform forever. There are toys, there are books, there are duvets and birthday cakes and all that stuff. And for those enormous brands, the capacity to get bigger and bigger is only going to grow, because I'd have a stake in a business in China, and you don't need to talk about China very long before the numbers become ludicrous. And on the day of Steve Jobs dying, it's interesting to note that in Shanghai, the Apple Store sold had 100,000 visitors on its opening weekend, which is as many as they had in LA for the new store in its opening month. So the scale of the market is going to be there. But if you look at sports rights, go back to that original sort of point, it's the people who can grab the attention of these global audiences and hold them who are seeing their value rise. And so the big global television hits will do that. But the reason that sports rights continue to rise in value is because there are very few things that can predictably and reliably deliver you global content activity on that kind of scale. So I think that at that scale there'll be more and more value. Your finger, I think, is on the big challenge, which is how do you manage the risk of trying to create new drama or new multi-platform brands if you're less sure of the scale you can reach, and that's kind of always been the challenge, hasn't it, of big television and big movies? It's a laying off of risk against potential reward. I don't think there's anything terribly new about that.
I mean, Laurent, obviously at the moment you develop ideas which are designed for dual screen essentially, or tri-screen I suppose consumption. So TV provides the synchronous experience and then people are playing along at home. But at Visiware, strategically, when you look at a world where internet-enabled television is coming, where the rise of the tablet is undeniable, what does that mean in terms of the sorts of experiences that you expect to be designing in the next sort of 10 years' time?
Yeah, what is very interesting is that this is not a market where one thing changed. Actually, this is a market where everything changed. Yeah. We're coming from basically a business where there was few content made by few people, broadcasted by even fewer people, to basically one media player, which was the TV. Yeah. And from there, we came to we are going to basically an unlimited number of contents. This is the social aspect of it, with a fragmentation of the content providers because there are more and more content. There is not only one TV set, but there are multiple screens. And there is not only there is not only few broadcasters, but there are many broadcasters. I'm including in the broadcaster not only the TV channels, but I'm including also the IPTV, IPTV cable, satellite broadcasters, where now the market is extremely open and you have so many ways of watching content. So we are coming, everything has moved. Everything has completely moved. And so I think to answer your question, the most important is in that word to understand that, first of all, this is the user experience that is the most important. So cross-media is obvious. Everybody is going to watch any content from many different, I would say, media player, tablet, telephone, whatever. But you shouldn't display it exactly on the same way. And this is something that actually the people who do games learn from many, many years. You never do the same game on a portable, on a PlayStation, and on a PSP and on PS6, etc. The content has to be formatted, and the experience has to be designed properly for each different content. So we have to be very careful that, this is the way things are going, and this is good. Again, this is a lot of opportunities, but it couldn't be exactly the same thing on any device. And so the content are going on the cloud. That's for sure. Files that are stored or video that are stored somewhere on your set-top boxes, hard drive, on the channel headhands. It's over. The content will be on the cloud, and wherever you are in the world, you will be able to bring back your favorites, your stored movies, your channel list, etc., etc., and you will be able to see whatever you want on any device, and it's almost there, and it's going. The only problem here is rights problems, but they are being solved over and over. So it's completely different, and now the job that we all have to do is to make sure that the experience is good enough on every single device.
You said something, Anthony, in your introduction about we shouldn't be talking about technology, we should be talking about behaviors, and obviously, what Laurent's company believes strongly is that one of the behaviors is around participation, around synchronous or asynchronous social participation. Do you think that, in terms of, I'm trying to get to what is the form, there's people in this room who are thinking about ideas that they should be developing strategic directions for their development teams. do we have to now basically be thinking in terms of social consumption of the media that we make?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of how we go about thinking about whether it's existing brands that we're trying to think through and create products for or strategies for, or new brands. But I think it's a slightly deeper question, because Laurent is, I don't think we're talking about just participation. That's such a broad word, it sort of doesn't take you very far. He's actually talking about play. He's talking about, in the jargon, he's talking about ludic things that you play with. And what we look at, and this is same process but from different ends when you're looking at an existing brand or when you're inventing something, is that realistically now and for the foreseeable future, most of our creative work will have a home platform. It'll either be the one where it's being funded from, and that's why there's a lot of telly there, but working in PlayStation, very different. I mean, the product we were working on in PlayStation most recently was bigger than most television dramas in budget terms by some distance, and that was its home platform. But then the key is not to just make for the home platform and add stuff on. It's to know what the home platform needs and then take the core idea, the core behaviours that you can trigger with that idea onto the other platforms.
But isn't that the point, though, that in 10 years' time, that home platform is not going to be a platform which in and of itself defines the form of the content that sits on it? I mean, the PlayStation network is going to be a social network, a linear content network, and a game network, right?
Yeah, well, maybe yes and no, I think, because people move more slowly than technologies, generally speaking, and I think there's a sort of there's an easy line to take, which is everything's opening up, everything's going more multi-platform, when in fact actually a large part of the media is closing down. And the control of Apple over apps, the control of the games networks over gaming, the control of Facebook over social revenues, that's slimming down in some ways your options. So I think it won't be about the platform, it'll be about the core behaviour. Where do people go to be told linear narrative stories? Where do people go to play on their own? Where do people go to participate in other things that other people are doing? Where do people go for social activity? And across all of that and most of this will be mobile and the technology will be personal, much more of the time even than it is now. Yeah. What we're seeing with tablets and mobile is the beginning. So in the same way that your medium, as Laurent is saying, will be able to move from box to box, which I agree with, that's entirely already happening. And frankly, if you operate in the pirate space, you already do that. It's only the commercial space that isn't. What will happen with the creative, I believe, is that there'll be places, there will be particular screens, there will be moments in your day when you are in narrative mode, when you are in play mode, when you are in participative mode, and there are things in between. And that's how we think about creating properties, not starting with what box, not starting with what platform.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a key point that you both address, which is social TV and participation at the same time. So I have a video, I don't know if you may run the video to give just one, simple example of social, which is how to do a play along with sports. What I want to say here is that the good point with the dual screen play along experience is that if you want to be fully relaxed on the sofa just watching a narrative story, you just watch a narrative story. If you want to participate, then you may participate. So it is the option of the viewers. It's not something that you are. It's not like a show that has been. That is forcing you to participate with. So that is the very good, one of the very good aspects of the dual screen. 62 to 65% of TV viewers now are doing something digital at the same time. So either on the iPhone or the tablet, etc. So it's pretty big number, and it's increasing. So you all know that we are not watching TV now just there, fixed on the TV and not doing anything else. We are doing something else.
And
so
you were saying in your notes that therefore the choice is not between whether or not your audience are also doing something else. It's the choice is about whether or not you are providing the other thing that they're doing or not.
Exactly.
Right?
So the question you may ask yourself is, your viewers, they will do something else. So the question is, would you want them to do something with you or with somebody else? That's the only question you should ask yourself. And so, but once again, if they want to, which is very important, if they want to participate, then they will be able to do it. And so, I may very quickly show you an example of how this social TV may do for sports. But again, we have many examples for different shows. So then the question here is, what if you could interact live with the game? So again, think that you are watching a sports match. Here it's soccer on the TV, and all the male usually think that the referee, the guy in the match, is like stupid and he doesn't know anything about soccer, and you know better than him. So let's prove. So here you say, okay, I think that there will be a goal. So you buzz for goal, and lucky enough you got a goal. So you earn the 800 points. You challenge your friends on Facebook, and so you can say to your friends, look, I'm better than you. I told you, and you can chat. I'm showing this because what more social activity you have than sports? Sports is about being with friends, watching a match, talking about it afterwards, etc. It's super social. So you may chat with them. Or here it's a ad break because I'm going to talk about revenue afterwards. So this is the sponsor of the interactive game. Then the game will start over. The game start over, and then we can do a quiz, for instance. And so you can again challenge your friends. But here I'm talking about, say, 500,000, 1 million people participating at the same time. Okay, and then I can display the statistics of who is the winner, who answers well, etc., etc. And I chat with my friends. I can score the match. I can score the players. We love to score players and decide who is the best scorer of the day. Well, so very quick and simple example of play along used with sports.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the topic of participation, I think people are still confusing participation with interference in people's minds. I don't think people want necessarily to interfere with the content. They want to talk about it, and that's participation. So and we see that in Brazil, for instance, when there are communities of kids on the internet who are downloading mostly illegally American content, like they would download the latest episode of Lost, like the instant it ran in the US, and they would go to communities on the internet and create subtitles for it, and within 24 hours, that's, if you do that, and if you take that content to that community, you're seen as a cool kid. And I think curation is going to be a big thing, and I think that is one way that participation is going to be really big from here on.
But you've got a team sitting there designing, these experiences, and at the moment, largely you have experiences that were designed for passive consumption that clever people then create participatory opportunities around. But let's just talk a little bit about the makeup of the sort of team that's going to be able to design things which are built for that kind of participation. Who do you when you're looking at your the team of the future in terms of an evolved media entity, who do you need in that team, do you think? Who are you going to see employed?
That's a really good question. I think the two.
Thank you.
Yeah, we spoke about it yesterday. Yeah. Just kidding. I think there's two very important issues there. One is I think you really have to integrate traditional TV creators. I don't think, as a rule, there are going to be like huge new shows coming out of YouTube Kids, but those YouTube Kids will be part of the picture. And I think there's a tendency, if you see somebody putting out some really incredible 3-minute amateur video on YouTube, the tendency is that this guy is going to be hired by a bigger company, and he's going to play a very important role in that. And I think, at least from what we're doing at TV Globo, the guy who directed Oash, the telenovela, whose Transmedia episode I just showed, he's in his 60s, and he's been at Globo since he was 18. And he's working together with some 20-something-year-old kids to put together content like that. And I think the key is to, well, on one hand, you have very senior TV creators or content creators. And on the other hand, yeah, I think the cool thing about the democratization of media is to be able to showcase your content. Today, if you're an 18-year-old kid and if you want to be in the media, there's nothing stopping you from showing your content. And
but I mean, the truth is that the only reason, the terrifying kid we all have in our mind who's going to take over. So the terrifying kid makes the amazing thing on YouTube and it hits, and then the TV or the media company swoops in with the checkbook and says, "Come this way," and etc. etc. Now, the only reason the kid then goes to that place is money, right? They don't go for freedom. And if they're already a hit and they've got millions of views, they don't go for the audience, they go for a livelihood. So as soon as YouTube or whatever comes after YouTube sorts itself out and actually starts to reward creators properly, then I mean, I'll ask you this question, Anthony. How universal do you think disintermediation is going to become? Because obviously the kid does not need anyone's permission to put the content up, and the audience doesn't need anyone's permission to watch it. So are we entering a world where producers have direct relationships with audiences as a more normal relationship?
Yes. I mean, let me just go back briefly to that kid and YouTube question before I tackle that. I think it's a bit of a red herring to some degree, that whole YouTube, I now make television programs phenomenon. It's kind of a form of talent spotting for broadcasters, and that's always happened. It's just easier and cheaper for broadcasters now. The disintermediation point's a different one. But if you go to, my experience recently inside a AAA game development studio, trying to answer the question about who makes products which are part story, part interactive, which is very different to television in some ways, was full of the same questions, because there aren't, as yet, very many people with enough sort of, if you like, native experience of a multi-platform world where properties are part interactive, sometimes linear at other times, with real experience. What we were seeing around us was a really interesting generation of people who are now in their kind of early 20s, who are raw enough but have the grammar and the vocabulary. There's no question that they don't understand this better than I do. And I'm, a bit like you, a charlatan transmedia person with 15 years experience, 20 nearly. There's no question they don't have the grammar. The difficulty comes when you try and bond them into teams that can create things of scale, big things. And that's not because they're young or transmedia, it's because big things of scale are hard. Working on global IPs on PlayStation is really, really difficult, as it is to make telenovelas that are going to keep 100 million Brazilians happy. So I think it comes to, and this is sort of the disintermediation point, there are the people who make stuff which is interesting and fun, and they have a sort of spiky viral flash where they're interesting. And that's very hard. And then there are people who do it twice, and that's not double as hard, that's 10 times as hard. And then there are people who do it every single week for a career, and that's really hard. So it's a talent question when push comes to shove. And what I think is happening gradually is that we've got a generation coming in who we don't have to sell the concept anymore to that generation. And if you're in the gaming business, the senior producers are 30. These guys with 20, 30, 40 million pound budgets. And that is not one of them who's a hit in Hollywood. That's most of them.
But I mean, by the time someone's got themselves a very, very successful YouTube channel, they've made an awful lot of small mistakes in order to get good, right? So, we're all very used in television to, I worked in the kids business for a long time, still do, 52 episodes of 3D CG, 10 million euros, and the audience haven't watched a single episode. Well, that's a risk, right? Whereas if I'm doing that out via my YouTube channel, I've iterated, failed, reiterated, and I can't remember if it was one of you guys, but talking about how Zynga, at Zynga, they're sitting there watching a bank of screens about how their games are being played, when audiences have disappeared. People are instantly recoding the game to optimize it so that you're ironing out the dips and you're maximizing the spikes. This is a very different iterative world, isn't it? Whereby, so I hear what you're saying about to do it once is a very difficult, do it twice is more than 10 times. But actually, that's a very sort of TV model, isn't it? Where you're doing cold introductions into the space and hoping they stick. Yeah. But actually, in a YouTube sense, we're talking about something really different, aren't we? In terms of testing a small idea. For you, Alex, with your online telenovela, one of the things you were saying to me yesterday was that the telenovela is already so quick that if a character gets popular, the next week's story can be tweaked to feature them more. So it's not like the audience interfered, but they kind of did interfere, didn't they? So just talk about the feedback loop now is so immediate. What does that mean in terms of how you guys develop and how you adjust what you're doing?
Right. Well, in terms of the telenovela, the telenovela is our big blockbuster format in Brazil. The 9 p.m. telenovela is the equivalent of a summer blockbuster in Brazilian terms, except it goes on for 8 months. And so if you have like, say, a character that becomes widely popular, more popular than he was in the original premise, you can write more episodes about him. You can give him a bigger storyline. You can make him bigger in the narrative. You can definitely respond in that format. You can definitely respond to feedback that the public gives you, and you can do that. On one hand, research. We've been doing the research part for a very long time, but also now our PR division is very dedicated to, finding what kind of feedback is going on in social networks, and we will use that too. We won't ever tell the writer, hey, you have to do this with your show. Ultimately, it's a decision of the writer and the director.
But isn't this the old sort of every Transmedia talk has a picture of someone standing around a fire telling a story to a tribe of people, right? I mean, that is the Transmedia slide that we all carry in our back pocket. Yeah. And you guys are doing that, and YouTube or a digital distribution network totally replicates. Like, good storytellers get invited back because they look at the audience and they go, oh, these guys are laughing, or, these guys really love the king, and I'm just going to tell the story a little bit more from that point of view. So the creators can fold their arms, and of course you'd never tell the creators what to do, but smart creators are listening, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. And I think the great thing about all of that fragmentation is now it's a lot easier for you to listen. Yeah. And a lot of our writers are online, a lot, and they go to communities and they have their own fake avatars or whatever, so they can ask questions about their own shows. And I think that's a great thing. But ultimately, you have to keep the creative process sort of, protected, because it's very easy to also go overboard in that, absorption of feedback. Yeah. And on one day you think this is what they want, and the other day you think that is what they want. Yeah. And audiences don't necessarily know what they want. They know what they like. And that is what you have to listen to. And in that sense, I think we're going to have more and more great tools to listen. And if, like you said, if we're smart, we're going to listen. But also we have to be a little bit careful, because otherwise you can't let this turn itself on its head. I think creators still need to make the last call on what level of interference there's going to be, and especially with mass content. Yeah.
Okay, let's just move on slightly. I'd like to talk a little bit about the idea of a territory. I mean, obviously this market has been largely defined by the fact there are territories and you sell different territories, and and that's how you build your business and build value in your content. You were talking about long tail, Laurent. So do we think we're leaving a space where where we have individual territories that are sold and content has a very short burn, into a world where essentially we're talking about long tail consumption patterns happening globally? I mean, in a world, again, let's think about 10 years out. Let's think about we're in a largely on-demand space. How do you see the relationship between, the window, the territory, and the niche?
I don't think any change really on this. And just think about something. I just showed the football. There is no reason why on the FIFA World Cup everybody in the planet is playing together. It's not like a nation event. We are talking about a worldwide event. So yes, I may potentially, and there is no reason why it shouldn't be done. In the next 2014 FIFA World Show, play with my friends in Brazil, in the UK, participating together to a world events. So, to make a very short and not complete answer, I think that the long tail is still, is always there for the content. So there will be the big shows, the big contents that will be massively potentially participating shows, and at the same time there will be the end of the long tail. So,
but Breaking Bad would have been a very, very niche show, and as the guy from Netflix said, the most downloaded episode of Breaking Bad is the first episode. So that is, every time someone watches the first episode, that is a new customer for that entire franchise. Now, time was, and so, like, for example, in the UK with Mad Men, you'd say to people, "Oh, have you seen Mad Men?" Like halfway through the season, "Oh no, I've missed it." Well, there's not going to be any missing of shows anymore, is there? So does that mean that, in On Demand, you never recommend something average? You never say to something, "Hey, you got to watch that. It's just like something else you've seen," or "Hey, you got to watch that. It was quite good." You say, "You got to watch that. It's amazing." So are we entering a story of? Are we entering an era of extraordinary products that are able to build audiences over time? Brackets, please say yes if you're a producer with ambitions.
Yeah, and we're already in it, aren't we? Isn't that what the DVD box set market tells us is coming? Yeah. The fact that people are willing to pay large sums of money for things that they may have already seen and that have already been on other platforms. I think I think there already is a new model of windowing. I think it's to do with how early you're willing to pay and how much. So I don't think it's about geography. I think if you're the sort of person who and this will not defeat the piracy question, but in terms of the commercial business, if you're the sort of person who part of their social currency is seeing the episode of Glee at the moment it is on air, then if you can get the money one way or another, and piracy is not your default option, then you'll pay it because it's got some value for you. And if you can hang on and wait until it comes out, and that will not be a year, by the way. That will not be even a month. That might be a week. If you can wait, then you'll wait. And it's kind of a version of this thing that I was sort of hinting at around global sports rights. The reason they're valuable is that, broadly speaking, once everybody knows the score and what's happened, there's no value in the rights. There's no value in a repeat, really, beyond a certain window. So, if there's value in the right up front, people are going to pay for it more and more. And you see it in games. You absolutely see it in social games. The entire commercial model of Zynga games is on paying for things. It's based on paying for things that if you could just hang on long enough, you could probably get anyway. Yeah. It's counter to the concept of gaming in some ways, where the idea is to win by playing. Actually, in Zynga-type social games, you win by paying because you're too impatient.
And you pay because it has value or has status within the community, right?
Or because it has status for you personally as an individual. Because you have a sense of achievement in the process.
Right, okay, yeah.
But, that's a lot of hardcore game people really dislike the social game model because the point of games is to play them, not to short-circuit them.
But isn't it because they're just old-school transmitters, right? They just don't want to be in a conversation. They want to make something and put it out there and you play it the way they say they play it, rather than a sort of more... my question really goes is, like, as a producer... and you're making content and you're now talking to a community as opposed to a passive audience. How does that change? You're obviously doing this on a massive scale, Laurent. What does that mean as a producer in terms of your responsibilities to that community? What's the difference between being a broadcaster and a community manager? And is that what we're all going to become?
Okay, so that's a very wide question. I will try to... just to come back on something related to this. Sorry. I think that Facebook changed completely the way we will provide content in a general sense in the future and the way we monetize content in the future. And it's not game only, it's very, very interesting always to see games, because game usually is like in the forefront of what's going to happen on many other kind of content in terms of distribution, monetization, etc., etc. And so games will never be the same after Facebook, never. The way you monetize with the freemium, which is free and premium together, has completely changed the game world as you know. And I think this is also the way this will change the social TV. The way we see the play along is that in most cases the interaction during the shows will be for free. Okay, not to mention that in some countries promoting on air something that is for pay is not easy or is forbidden. So the way I see it is that the play along will be for free. but there will be the play anytime, and this is the very important point. The play anytime is basically the game, for instance, if it is a game show, or the sports game if it is a sports show, that you may play anytime. So say Money Drop. For Money Drop, for any single play along session, so viewers playing during the show, we have 3 times pay session on standalone, on the play anytime. So that's not your question, but I'm going to. So that's one source of monetization. And this is what our platform is pretty unique, is that we bring the full thing, which is the play along with the play anytime and Facebook. So you start to play on the play along, which is basically the Trojan horse, because you keep the audience thanks to the huge play along audience, and then you smoothly bring them to the continuity of your experience, which is on the play anytime, on the different devices, etc. So first source of monetization is the play anytime. Second source of monetization is the sponsoring. And for instance, in France, it is Procter & Gamble, and during the show, we push a mini game in the Money Drop game, so they target email with a quiz about the Procter products, and so it's brilliant. Say, a good example is in Brazil, Nestlé is the sponsor. It's a huge sponsorship. And actually, the play-along here is not fully free. I think it's interesting. You play the play-along during the show if you have bought one Nestlé product. Because to enter the play-along, you need to put the code of any Nestlé product you have at home or you bought, okay? So it's free, but it's not that free. And for the sponsor, it's very good because it's bringing the Nestlé and etc. So, okay, I'm going to the monetization already. So
the question was about community, I think. I think the question was, and we will come back to monetization for sure in the last 10 minutes, but Anthony, you were...
I was just underpinning what Laurent is saying, I think, is one of the big shaping factors of what's to come. And it comes from that notion that Facebook has changed games forever. Well, actually, Facebook's changed advertising forever as well, hasn't it? That's one of the reasons it's changed games. I think if we're looking for a big trend that's going to be talked about here for the next decade, a big part of it is going to be who controls the data about play, participation, buying behaviours alongside TV shows or anything else, frankly. If you see as the argument between Apple and Pearson, which has happened recently about selling subscriptions through the iTunes store, and Apple suddenly getting a slice of all of that revenue as a sort of opening shot in a battle about data, because in the end, as advertising becomes more personalised, therefore more valuable, if Facebook owns all that data, then the broadcasters in an even riskier place than they were in before. And you see forward-looking broadcasters like Channel 4 in the UK, David Abraham, their chief executive, has made this one of his key points. They've got to work out who has that relationship and how the data is shared or otherwise in that relationship. Because if that's where the value in the advertising is going to come from, and they're coming because of Laurent's play-alongs or because they're attracted to the telenovela or Doctor Who or whatever it is, then you need your hands on some of that data, or the value's leaching away from your investment in the content really quickly.
I'm going to abandon my trying to make you talk about the difference between a community manager and an audience, but anyway. So let's talk about money then. Come on, let's talk about it. I knew we were going to have to at some point. So Laurent, you talked about a few of the financial models there. Obviously you're sitting in a massive broadcaster, Alex, and in some ways you're caught in a funny bubble because you've got a rising middle class, therefore there's a bigger paying customer base available, but at the same time you must also be seeing particularly a youth audience disappearing off television and onto other devices and into other contexts of consumption. So let's just talk about money. I mean, I'm sure there's things you can't talk about, but where does a large organisation like Globo, riding not just a technological but a social revolution, where do you see the value sitting in the future?
Well, in our case, we really produce content for a mass audience, and we don't really have any point in our schedule where we don't see it as a mass target. So in that case, most of our programming is ads supported, and I think in Brazil we're going to see a lot of that going on for a very, very long time. But that's only part of the equation. Obviously, you see our international division is expanding. We're doing co-productions in the US Hispanic market. We're talking to Russia and other territories about doing co-productions. I think in our case, your question actually entails that Globo is both a producer and a broadcaster. So on a production end, we, as much as we are focused on our home audience, and one of our telenovela episodes is probably watched by, 40-something million people every night. And that might not be exact, but it's, not too far from that. So on one hand, we can't abandon that huge core audience because we have even a social role to play in that equation. But yes, we definitely have to look at the world as a much, much smaller place. And we are producing international content, and I think that's going to grow. But I think.
But would you, for example, ever think about there's the Portuguese-speaking diaspora around the world? Should they? How are they getting your telenovelas? Should you be doing a sort of app version of paper app to download? Is that? I mean,
yeah, the telenovela is a difficult format to download because it's daily. So was the technological equation that it's just easier to wait for another day and catch up and talk to somebody who's seen it. I don't think that particular format will be, maybe proven wrong, but I don't think that's going to be a format that people are going to exploit in the same model that, say, American series that we know, like Mad Men or Breaking Bad. There's no season for a telenovela. And if you miss it for like 3 days, that's 3 hours of content that you won't really pile like 7 hours of content to watch on a weekend, because that's 7 hours every weekend. But I think for other kinds of content, and we are definitely producing lots of other kinds of content, I think we're going to have to look at every possibility. And we have some downloading services already going on. And again, that is also one part of the equation. But I'm just going back to the issue of event television. Some of our biggest shows that are not drama-driven are live shows, and we've been running a live entertainment show on Sundays for the past 22 years. And I think that kind of show, where you run a lot of formats like talent contests and game shows within that kind of umbrella format. And I think those kinds of shows are going to be big drivers, and we have to find new ways to make money off those formats
it's
as well.
Interesting, isn't it? Because, where is the value? The value, does the value reside in the content itself, which people are used to getting for free? Does the value reside in access to the social experience around the content? In a freemium world, which bit is free and which bit is premium, we've got 2 minutes left on this panel, so I'm just going to... What do you think, Anthony?
At the kind of abstract level, the value resides in whatever gets attention, because it used to be distribution got attention because there was very little choice.
Yeah.
And now it's attention that matters more.
Yeah.
Most. That's the currency we've got. And if you can get the attention of large numbers of people some of the time, or small numbers of people who really care about something a lot,
yes,
then they've got value.
Yes.
I think the difficult bit is the middle, where you kind of haven't quite got anybody's attention enough. Yeah. If people can't be bothered to turn it over, you've got a monetization problem.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about I actually do think it's all about the very big and the very niche.
Yeah.
I think we'll see much more mass, and I think we'll see a mass of niche stuff. But generic television for just about anybody, I think, is a problem business to be in.
Yeah.
And then you're into where are people willing to spend? What platforms will they spend on? Where do they see the value? In other products that are alongside something. It's the kids market shows us a lot of what I think the rest of the market's going to look like as time goes on. And then it's getting beyond the traditional television models and into thinking about things like advertising, data, whether it's product placement or sponsorship, all of those pieces you have to think through. But in the end, I do believe, and it sounds like my friend here on my left, Alex, agrees with me, it'll be mass, and it'll be a lot of massive niches.
Got it. Laurent, you were feeling for your microphone.
Yeah, so I mean, very quickly, I think it's not like one against the other. The social is bringing a definitely an added value, and if I have to go quick, I would say just think about something. Think about a game show, I mean a show about, one of the show about dating. Yeah? So while participating to the show, you will ask to the audience questions like, do you like brunette? Do you prefer people living in this countryside? No. And so you will get to the point where you have a super targeted audience that you will be connected to. And think about the fact that emails worth, for very targeted emails, worth up to $10, $20 each, and you have 1, 2, 3 million people. You get my point.
We have 10 seconds left, so I'm going to thank our panelists very much for, I know we covered an awful lot, far too much. Every single topic could have taken a day, but hey, anyway, last day of the conference. Thank you all very much for coming.